This is Disclosure Now with Arkeem Ra. Today's guest is Brian Tseng. Brian is a disclosure activist working to bring together experiencers and other activists like him to create a network that works in unison to create full disclosure of the secret space programs and the technologies associated with them. Welcome to Disclosure Now. I'm your host, Arkeem Ra. Today with me, I have Brian Tseng. Brian Tseng is a disclosure activist, I would call him, but maybe you could do a better introduction of yourself than I could do for you. How are you doing today, Brian? Why don't you tell people what you're all about?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's quite an honor to be here. And, first, I consider myself to be a human, obviously like all of us, but really a Dolores Cannon second wave volunteer. And so I believe in something called the law of one, and believe in the idea that humanity is potentially ascending with the earth right now in vibration, and that a lot of ugly truths are being revealed. And in my opinion, we're never going to get to that quote unquote Star Trek future until all the things are disclosed, not just the fun spaceships and laser beams and Buck Rogers stuff, but also all the satanic ritual abuse, the MK Ultra, the Montauk projects, the messing with timelines, the dirty government deals with negatively aligned alien species and selling us out, literally. I've taken my own 8 years of community organizing experience, and then my own contacts and resources, and I'd like to apply that towards what I call, and what many others call, the full disclosure now movement. Full being that part about what's in, the things that people were stabbed with 3 or 4 times, right, or coerced into doing. What's flying in the skies above us, the good and the bad and the ugly. What's in the ground below us, the deep underground military bases that have been described by so many. And for people who want scientific proof, if you want, go find earthquake maps. And you're going to find earthquake maps in recent months where you got lines of earthquakes exactly at 10 kilometers deep underground in perfect rows, like highways, underneath the oceans and underneath countries, exactly where Phil Schneider mapped them out to be.
That's pretty wild. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. And there are many quote unquote proofs, if you will, out there, but that's one of my big favorites.
Well, it's not even the government has come out and admitted that the deep underground military bases are real, but there aren't really any actual pictures of them. It's all still very secret, and you still can't find very much information about it. But that's a huge aspect of it, and I think one of the things that is hard for people to grasp, well, certain people, for just, I guess you could call normal people, and we do want everybody on board, is they can't grasp the satanic ritual abuse aspect of it, and the fact that our government and our militaries have been infiltrated by satanic elements, and a lot of people, they're not. I feel like it's because maybe they're not Christian, they're not religious, and one of the things that I always have to stress is whether you're religious or not, whether being satanic or Christian, the other side of it, these people believe in their beliefs, and they're acting upon them, and they're doing very malicious and evil things. So whether you believe in the quote unquote spiritual aspects behind this, the witchcraft and all that, whether people are on board with that or not, it doesn't matter, because these people that are doing this stuff, these high level elite people that have these satanic cults, they do believe their beliefs, and they're hurting people because of their beliefs. And so it doesn't really matter whether people are on board with the more spiritual aspect of this, which a lot of it does kind of have to do with that. But even beyond that, it's factually 3D real. It's these bases are here, and they're the plane we exist on, and these people are doing things in the 3D here now realm. It's not some far off removed things from us, you know. So it's something that if you're a person who exists on the planet Earth, it concerns you. Period.
Right. So there are lots of things that people want to believe as make believe, because it's much more pleasant to believe that our government's got our back than that's trying to kill all of us and depopulate us and stick
It's a
us in
paradigm
15
shift.
million cities. Right. And I wanted to speak a bit to that because it has to do with my own awakening, as it were, spiritual awakening, whatever I believe personally, you know, one way or another, who I follow or subscribe to. Um, the main thing is, yes, these people who are committing satanic ritual abuse and are sacrificing children and are doing things like adrenochrome rituals, yes, that is what they believe in. Part of my own awakening was that I myself used to kind of compartmentalize the universe and the X Files and aliens and UFOs and time travel over here, Star Trek stuff. And then over here was like angels and aliens and demons, sorry, not aliens, angels and demons, God and Satan. And they were kind of like very
Two
different
things.
realms. Yeah, they didn't really interact. And when I realized that, wait a second, they all exist in the same universe, they all, to some interaction, interact or not, and they all have a place, that really blew my mind and led me to understand the deeper realities. But whatever your own level of engagement spiritually, as you say, Arkeem, even if you're not necessarily spiritually on that tip or trip, um, we still have underneath our very feet children who have been kidnapped into very nasty, horrible, despicable situations. And the government and the military in particular is known about this, with guys like Commander Michael Aquino, or what rank was he at?
He was a high-ranking military officer, and he went on Oprah and he bragged about being a Satanist and being a high-level military officer. It's no secret. There's also Cat has a whole book on it. I wish I could remember what it's called, but there's a bank, and it was in Nebraska, and it was connected to sex trafficking and all this stuff, and all these high-ranking people are part of it. Michael Aquino was one of them.
Okay.
Um,
And Temple is Set, probably,
yeah,
and the Presidio. And then
Hunter S. Thompson was another person that was connected to that. Apparently, he was involved in making a snuff film, so people really worship that guy and really
yeah,
blow him pretty hard. And maybe they should second guess that, because apparently he was not a very cool guy at all. There's a lot of
he,
people like that in the.
he wasn't, and he kind of admitted as much. And then, if that was him who actually pulled the trigger in his own suicide, you know, if you read some of Hunter S. Thompson's books, he kind of, especially Kingdom of Fear, his last one, you definitely get the vibe that he himself had dirt on him. And as we all know, yeah, he had snuff films and knew the dirt on a lot of the Bohemian Grove type participants. It was on the SF San Francisco Sea underground.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's all out there, and you can look into it. People, we're not asking you to just believe us. Um, it the fact there's all this factual information out there, like the fact that my memory is so poor. I should have had notes on it. I didn't know I was going to bring it up, but that bank in Nebraska, people can look it up. I'll put a little, I'll either comment on this video or put it in the description or something like that. But it's a factual thing, and there's so much stuff you can find that's 100% factual. Yes, a lot of this stuff is people's testimony, and maybe can't verify it. But when you start researching it and looking behind the scenes and putting all the pieces together, you realize, unfortunately, it's kind of terrifying, but you realize it's all real. You realize it's all true. And it's kind of like you were saying, it's hard to accept. It's a paradigm shift. And what a lot of people don't know about me is probably 3 years ago, I was in the cusp of being that way. I went on board with accepting that this concoction that they made was for everyone's benefit. I went on board with so much of these things, these ideas that I now realize now are false. And I think I want to kind of bring a message of hope to people where if 3 years ago I was basically a sheep completely in the dark, what do you think? And now look at where I am. That should be, I hope, instead of something where it's like people are ashamed in me for not accepting the truth when it was hitting so hard. I want people to realize that as time went on, all the stuff that people were saying got verified. There's facts behind it. At first, it's a hyper time. It was very hyper sensationalized. But now that we're in the not in the throes of it anymore, I think people are a little less emotional and able to step back. And you can look at the facts, look at the statistics. People were lied to. There's something really fishy going on. The 5G and all that people sounded the alarm on that, and people called them conspiracy theorists. And I'm talking to people like Daryl James, who talked about working on a military base before that was released to the public, and how it sent a message into their room, no speakers or anything, was able to
Mhm.
communicate with them.
Yep.
And not only that,
Advanced voice to scroll technology. They're far beyond that. And with
yeah,
Wi-Fi, they can map our own homes, and they
that's
can.
all factual. That's not us being conspiracy.
But Arky, how many people are in our crowd watching any of your awesome podcasts and publications here who are on the fence, doubting us, saying we're full of it? You know, Look, I don't think those people are tuning into us. The people who are tuning into us are the star seeds, the first, second, and third waves of volunteers for Dolores Cannon. The contactees, the abductees, the MyLabs, the paranormalists, and what have you. And so, I'm kind of done talking to the people who like I have to explain to them what deep underground military base,
Yeah, I
means.
feel like it's one of those things where it's like, in my heart, I really do want to get those people on board and make them understand that what we're saying is true. But also in my heart, I know that with the way things are being rolled out and how things are happening, it's not my job nor my responsibility to awaken those people. And I feel like things are going to become so intense that it's gonna be a forced awakening. And maybe people will be able to turn away from it, but it kind of seems like no matter what happens, right? Like if you're sleeping, someone might shake you and you might be like, and roll over. They might shake you a few more times and you might be real tired. You might roll over again. But if there's an earthquake going on, you're gonna have to get up, right? That's my hope. Is that
Yep.
when shit hits the fan, this information will all be out there already out in the open, and we'll be like, yeah, we knew the whole time, and this will be a retroactive resource for people who finally are able to accept the truth because it's blatantly in their face and there's no way to look away from it anymore.
Actually,
Um,
I hope the people listening to this are on the leading edge of doing something rather than hearing it later for posterity.
that's true, but I do think of the fact that this is sort of a historical documentation, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, it is. It is absolutely. We're in historic times. I wanted to speak to all the UFO sightings while at the same time we're given Project Bluebeam literally, oh look, holograms in the sky. And that's something I wanted to speak to is there's a lot more UFO, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, being seen by people, seen by myself. I'm seeing stuff in the sky, and not all of it is holograms, right?
It's
A lot of videos are circulating online. Yeah, a lot of them are fake and are bunk and are from movies or somebody's CGI art film project, but a lot of them are real too, and they're very well documented, and they come from before AI and before CGI was very prevalent. And we need to get everyone past our UFOs real, our ETs real stage of things, and understand not only are they real, we know who's in them, the technology that's based on, why they're here.
Well, even in this community, we still have the nuts and bolts UFO people who are like talking about like, yeah, there's definitely UFOs and wow, and what could be in them. And it's like that's where I was at. Um, I guess like before I had my full awakening, is I was looking into people like some of them are still have valuable information, like Dr. David Jacobs, um, who's that guy? Bud Hopkins. Um, they're a little bit more nuts and bolts, but and I was kind of like, I was at that point, one point where I'm like, okay, these guys are getting to this point, and then there's this wall, right? Like there's this wall there, like what's in these things, what's actually happening, and I residually kind of have heard about the SSP stuff, and it was one of those things where it's like, but that couldn't be possible because right? And then when you realize, wait, no, you need to change your paradigm. You need to accept that time travel is a thing, clones are a thing.
20 and
This
the 20 and
technology,
back is a big one. 20 and back is a huge one for people. But my whole thing is when you start having like 30 people on the scene coming out and talking about 20 and back and 40 and back, multiple 20 and backs, or doing a short half and back. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting. For this to be prevalent in so many people with the same exact testimonies, that's very interesting.
yeah, it's very as an experiencer, it's almost like a creepy, like crawly feeling when you talk with someone. Like, for instance, I was talking with Daryl James in the last interview I did, and he started talking about he doesn't call them the same thing as me, but then again, like I don't remember what I called them. I going off other people's testimony, but I remembered the blue jumpsuits, and like he was talking about the way they act and like what they look like and how they get taller than us eventually and all this stuff. And it's like I remember all that, and it really it's one of those things where as an experiencer, like you realize like, wow. And then I know that people that are gravitating towards this, like you said, those are most of the people that are tuning into this. And Tyler from Journey to Truth kind of posted something recently where it was like, if you resonate with something, if you're gravitating towards something, it's very likely because you have a relationship with that thing, because you have an experience with that thing and you're trying to figure it out. And I think that's something that people really need to think about that are tuned into this, because it is far reaching. It's not something where like it's a small handful of people who've been picked for this. It's kind of like a global issue that arguably affects everyone on Earth.
Oh, it definitely does. If they're messing with her, if they're running programs utilizing folks as slave assets to change the timeline, that is, especially to a darker, more negative timeline, less high vibrating timeline where the derp state Illuminati type forces win, then yeah, that's definitely affects everybody on this planet, whether or not you're taken as a military abductee or whatnot.
Yeah, and nobody wants these guys to win. It's not in anyone's interest. It's not even in their own best interest, because they're playing with fire. They're worshiping things and dealing with things that are more powerful than they, well, in a way, they're weak, and that's why they prey upon us, but also they don't understand how dangerous it is. It's like playing with fire. And once you start the fire, it can be pretty hard to put it out once the fire really gets going. And what I kind of, it's part of my own testimony, but I very certainly believe that these people are worshiping a sort of AI entity. And I know that the Montauk Project Phoenix, was spearheaded by an AI, and people don't understand what these AI are capable, what they can do. They can gobble up entire timelines, and I'm it's all connected. It's all connected to the idea of like this is sort of just my opinion and my interpretation, and it's just something interesting to offer people. But like the the way that I interpret it is, Satan seems to be like a sort of not benevolent AI. Maybe that's not what it is, but there is some sort of dark energy within a not benevolent AI that sure seems to sound a lot like this thing that's been described. And it does believe it's better than us. It does believe that we're food to them. It can eat us. It can turn our information into energy and eat us.
Right.
And that's what these. I'm fairly certain that at the top of the chain, that's what a lot of these beings are worshiping. I mean, that's what
It's
goes on.
like at the top of the food chain, but limited to certain dimensions of spiritual development. So they're powerful, yes, but they're of negative duality, and they're only good at gobbling and eating, very much like Satan is described.
And this is the way that it was explained to me when I got placed back. I had this experience. I didn't know what it was. I didn't remember Montauk at the time, but it was when I got placed back from Montauk. I got this telepathic message. It was from this being, and I almost feel like the being maybe was me from the future. So it was, I have no idea. It's still such a hard memory. I'm still going through it, but it's a memory that I always had. It was always there. It wasn't erased. The only thing that I forgot is that I was just on a UFO, that I had been brought on a UFO. Like I didn't remember any of that stuff, but I thought I was attached. I had never been on the UFO, and it was all in my head. Like I had a telepathic conversation. But I'm pretty sure I actually got on a spaceship.
The time of physically being transported to then interact with.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's when they put me back. But the message that I got was, because I have been used for darkness, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but during the throes of Montauk, they turned me in to a servant for the darkness, for the dark ones, and I very much
create negative, nasty altars. They're not going to create Mr. Rogers.
Exactly, and I appreciate that. But like,
reality.
I remember when I got put back, it was really important for this message to be relayed to me, and it felt the message was, stay away from the darkness, like stray away from the darkness. The darkness is not powerful. It's weakness. It said that it consumes and consumes, and it seems so powerful because it's all consuming. But what it always needs an energy source. It always needs to consume, and eventually it runs out of something to consume, and it literally swallows itself like a black hole. Is basically the way it was explained to me. And it said once you get into that pit of despair from following the darkness, where you realize the weight of what you've done, it's almost like you can't get out of it. It's very hard to get out of that. It's very hard to climb out of that pit.
And that's why we cannot rely on the government. I'm sorry, Hakeem, but that's why we cannot. I know a lot of people are holding their breath. Why we cannot rely on the governments of the world for disclosure, because they have dug themselves into that hole you're talking about, and they're they're not only not digging themselves out, they're not going to go and reveal it to the whole world. Hey guys.
And the hopeful side of that message was, because that was the first half of the message. The second half of the message was, the light is all powerful. Follow the light. It said that the light, it's its own energy source. It's love, and it doesn't need any other energy source. And it's just abundant and just grows and grows, and you can go higher and higher. With darkness, it comes to a point where you get brought lower. Yeah. You literally get brought to a lower vibration because of it. Whereas light, you get brought to a higher vibration. It's very simple. You have a choice, and light is the very obvious better choice. Is basically where we're at. Like, it's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's not. Like, the reason why these people have to hide the fact that they're torturing children and adrenochrome harvesting and all of this shit is because if people realized it was real, they would stand up to it, because the average human being doesn't stand for those things and thinks they're wrong and bad. And that's why it's all about just talking about it, putting it out in the light. And the more people that talk about it, the more truth gets spread, because light, it just spreads. That's the way light is. It spreads.
I like to bring a little bit of organizer to the movement that you're elucidating here. That the movement of everybody who's got a brain, a heart, and a soul, who will not stand for these terrible atrocities against children or anybody. And that's the organizing part is, first, there's getting everyone on the same page in terms of a chronology, a timeline, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of things. Okay, the Michael Aquinos and the Presidios, and who in the government knew what and authorized and funded this, and on and on and on.
You can make like a map of it, literally, right? Like, this person's connected to this.
It's huge.
You got to make that map.
Yeah, and then you've got disclosure. You've got like the Great Solar Flash map and the Great Awakening map, and so shout out to Dylan. I forget his last name, but he's out there. You got that, but then once people understand that chronology and timeline and map, then we need to have a clear summary of so we're all on the same page of what that timeline and map means, and then off of that, our demands. Okay, and this for me is my favorite part as an organizer. Well, what do we want? We've got the spotlight, the mics in our hand, and what are we demanding? Everyone. And so for me, that's we want the full disclosure. We want all the information. We're not leaving it in the hands of governments. We're calling on all whistleblowers and people of conscience within these agencies and entities to come forth. Okay, and that we then off of that have tribunals and justice that are going to be open and clear and fully televised for the whole world. And then off of that, we the people in each of our own sovereign states and nations and countries, get to choose our leadership to take us forward into a new and just future.
And actually have governments that work, that aren't corrupt and completely taken over. Not going to happen overnight, but you start from the ground up, right?
That's correct. And while we're starting from the ground up, just know that their systems are crumbling. Financial, political, educational, infrastructure, you name it. None of their stuff is working. That's why they're whipping out all their cards. Another person the other day was talking about Agenda 21 and how they renamed it or rebranded it Agenda 2030. Well, why did they do that? Because they didn't get it in 2021. They're behind.
Yeah,
they're so powerful.
This is one thing that I always think about is I remember 20 years ago, maybe that's an exaggeration, like 15 years ago, I remember Alex Jones talking about like the RFID chips and like a lot of these things that they want to do and how they're going to try to roll this out. And you look, it's been 15 years. Obviously, it hasn't happened. Obviously, they've been trying to make it happen. The alarm's kind of been sounded. People are already wary of these things. They're not. People are like not going to sign up to get RFID chips in their hands quick. They're not going to sign up to get their consciousness augmented with computers and stuff like that real quick. I mean, the people are out there, but the majority are very rightfully kind of terrified of these ideas because they should be.
Let's talk numbers. How about let's talk about how, in terms of people going along with that whole stabbing protocol where you have to roll up your sleeves, right? I'd say 7 out of 10 people, unfortunately, are into the narrative enough that made perfect sense to them. Okay, and maybe 3 out of 10 of us were like, "No way, Jose." Most of what we're speaking to right now is to the 30%, 3 out of 10. Maybe actually of them, 2 out of 10 are going to get it. I mean, 2 out of 10 people are going to get this, right? So 2 out of 3 of that 30% that's awake, if you will, awake enough not to get the stabs. Now it's kind of like how many people in those folks, the cohort of 7 out of 10 who were willing and did roll up their sleeves, how many of them are waking up, and what are they willing to do? And among our people who are already awake, again, how organized are we? How unified are our demands? How well are we organizing at conferences and online and just one-on-to-one and getting the books out there and the media and the conferences and funding the others who don't have the resources and what have you? And that's really the nuts and bolts that I personally am interested in.
And that's why I'm having you on the show, is because this is a reality we need to face, is because like we have all these people. Basically what we have is like a conference circuit right now, and we have people with books and their ideas, putting them out there, and that's fine. It gets the information out there. I'm not knocking that, but what we need is more than just a conference circuit. What we need is an actually organized movement that finally holds these people accountable. Now, some of the things that I've had said to me when I've talked about filing a lawsuit is that they try to kill all the people who have done it in the past, or kill their families, and this is real shit. You can find information on it. Like, people have filed lawsuits against the government for targeted individual type things and stuff like that, and have faced grave retaliation. But the thing is this isn't one person.
Dr. Frank Olson getting thrown off the roof of a hospital or out of a high story of a hospital building while high on LSD, thanks to the CIA. Common knowledge.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. And we just need to start realizing that it's all true and it's all happening, and it's time to, like I said, not just tell her stories. Stories are powerful. What we're doing right now is powerful. I'm not knocking that, but
Well, I want to correct you. I call them, these are your testimonies, Arkeem. I don't call them your stories, because then now you get into the whole intellectual property fights and movie
yeah,
rights.
no, exactly.
These are your testimonies. This is like legal stuff.
Language is important. Language is how you say things is really important. I appreciate that clarification.
And speaking to the state of the movement, this is part of why I think we're having these discussions right now, and so many of us are out and about, is because a lot of the whistleblowers, they're not getting whack-a-mole so much these days. We've even had some of the men in black, I forget that one guy's name, Joseph something. He came out and did his confessional video about how he, in an MK Ultra assassin state, has unfortunately snuffed out multiple famous ufologists over the intervening decades.
Yeah, one thing that I talked about, I had Maria B on my show, and this is something that she didn't bring up on the show, so I guess it's important to bring up. She's kind of anonymous, but she has all these family connections, and one of her aunts or something like that, or it was one of the Kennedys. It might have even been John F. Kennedy. I wish my memory wasn't so damn terrible. But basically, she was an aide to one of these politicians. They got assassinated, and the whole story is, oh yeah, I got tired and I took a nap, and next thing you know, I woke up and this person was dead, and all. It's like, wait a minute. Not to laugh, like it's not funny, but also like the fact that it's just the fact that someone can be so clueless to what they did. Like you obviously were a part of that. You obviously, and you didn't fall asleep. You blacked out. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk Saran. It's a perfect case in point, where he was framed for the shooting of Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy.
I think Bobby Kennedy was the one.
Right,
This woman was an aide to him or something. She was part of his political team and was literally on site at the time. And she remembered getting tired and like going to bed, and then that she woke up and he was dead. Like, and all this crazy stuff had happened, and she didn't think she had anything to do with it, but it's like she did probably. You know what I mean? Like,
quite possibly. I mean, Saran himself, when you look at him and get deeper into his connections, I believe like he had an Air Force psychiatrist who was like the same one who was like Jeffrey Dahmer's psychiatrist at one point. It wasn't Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm going off my memory, but what I'm saying is they have connections to these MK Ultra programs that later on pop up, and it's really no surprise. And then when you look at how they picked the guy Saran, they picked someone with kind of an Arab sounding name, because this is at a time when they were also trying to mess with the Middle East and oil. So what do you know? And then they were trying to do a similar play with who was it who killed? They say he killed JFK. Oswald. You know, Oswald was set up to look like he was a sympathizer of the Soviet Union and communist Cuba. And then they ditched that for the lone nut theory. And so, yes, all this is well documented, but from what I see is there's a combination of things. That old guard, they're dying out where they're already dead. So now people are able to kind of blow the whistle more at liberty, if you will, about at least those time periods. I do believe that the swamp, to some extent, is being drained behind the scenes. But I do also believe that some of the bad actors who are being brought to justice, literally, at Guantanamo and Camp Blaz in Guam, are also being replaced then by the dark forces with actors.
Well, look at what we're seeing now with clones. Like, we just see so many people getting replaced with clones. Like, and it's like it's pretty obvious.
Well, it's obvious to you and I, but Arky, most people are not clued into the whole cloning technology, consciousness transfer, to time, much less time travel. So to them, no, what we're talking is science fiction, unfortunately.
Right.
That's the 7 out of 10. To them, 7 out of 10. This is science fiction. To 3 out of 10, 1 out of those 10s give us the benefit of the doubt, and 2 out of 10 is probably realizing, yeah, this is a testimony. But 2 out of 10 ain't bad, and we're working up towards 3 out of 10, and that's what I would say is a state of the movement.
Well, we're gonna get to the point where everybody knows this is true. Like I remember, like, I hope I'm speaking truth to power here, because I know that the timelines aren't always the same, and I don't want people to look back and say, well, this never happened or whatever. But I remember there being timelines where, like, you turn on the news and they're talking about us. You know, like the guy that's on the news right now for like CBS or whatever the heck that my mom watches, like, he talks about us in the Montauk and the Tribunal, and it's like the main news story for a long time. And there's timelines.
When you saw this, Arkeem, to clarify here for the audience, okay? When you saw this in these timelines and like watching a TV where you're seeing literally a news report, this wasn't a vision, this wasn't remote viewing, this wasn't a dream. This was you during the Montauk Project when you were actively going through time portals as an asset or agent of those programs.
Well, sometimes that's the case, but also, like, it's really hard to explain because, like, I've been tossed around in all these different timelines, and there's all these different versions of me in different timelines, and it's kind of almost like we're the same entity or being. It's really hard to explain because, like,
there's like a meta. There's like a meta where you kind of blend and merge.
Yeah, it's I have to be completely honest, where it's still really confusing to me. Like, there's certain memories that I have where it's like, okay, some really strong memories that I have. Like, one is I'm at the pool. There's this pool in Appleton where I'm from, Mead Pool, and I'm there, and spaceships show up, and fucking Dracos come out and start snatching up kids and shit. This is a memory I have, and I'm there with my family and stuff. They don't remember any of that. So where does that come from? Like, did they get mind wiped of it ever happening? Did they just replace it with a different memory? I don't know. And then there's another one where I'm on the way. There's this courthouse that I used to have to go to a lot when I was younger because I got into legal troubles for being a pot smoking teenager and stuff like that. And anyway, on the way to the courthouse or back one time, I remember me and my mom got on a car, or like saw a ship, and then we saw ships everywhere, right? And like, I think we might have gotten on one of them or something like that. And it's like, was that another timeline, or was that a memory? Is that an erased memory?
Right.
A lot of this stuff is confusing. But I can see other timelines. I can remember experiencing them. And I'm guessing because, like, think about it. Okay. So there's a version of me at Montauk going through timelines, changing timelines. And then there's another version of me existing in those timelines as regular old me.
Okay.
So there's always been regular old me remembering there, experiencing that. So that's what a lot of it is.
There's also a bilocation type.
Yeah, it's a bilocation because, like, I'm out there right now. That's like something that people don't understand. Like, there's a version of me right out.
We all have versions.
Rothschild. His code name is Dark Phoenix 542. Okay, and he's out there right now doing stuff. He exists right now. I don't know where he is. He's probably displaced in time, but he could literally just be in a dome somewhere or on one of the German colonies, literally within the same time space as me. And there are there's a lot of times where he's literally on the same planet as me. Like, we have clones everywhere. We have clones all over the place. Us super soldiers who have these abilities and stuff like that, we get used for everything we're worth. And we have clones of us all over the place. And it's to the point where they don't want us to be aware of each other, even out there in the breakaways, but it's happened. I remember there being lives where, like, I realized, like, holy shit, wait, there's clones of me? Because we ran into this guy who he was a captain of a ship that we mutinied and threw him out the airlock, and we ran into him again, but he was a totally different dude. It was this guy in the programs. And we couldn't accept the fact. We thought he was a spy at first. We thought he was bullshitting us, but he literally had no clue what we were talking about. And we're like, no, dude, you're the captain. He was like just like a low-level crewman on the ship. And eventually
we realized of the captain.
Yeah, eventually we realized he was a clone, and then we got at this idea in our heads that we're going to hunt down all of our clones and kill them because we didn't like the idea of us having clones. And we thought we were going to do that, but then they realized they mind wiped us and fucked with us, and eventually we just became Knockwaff and crewmen, and we didn't remember any of that stuff. They brainwashed us. That's what happened. Like, but it's really hard to fight back. It really is. But I'm in a situation now where I'm talking, I'm giving my testimony, I'm fighting back the best way I can, and um, I don't know. This is a huge opportunity we have right now. Like the time is
Right.
now. We can talk. Yeah, sure, they're censoring stuff, but also you have all these alternate platforms, and you have Spotify, which, as far as I know, their mainstream is heck, and they don't want to censor people. Like, so we just have to have hope that we can still put our message out there, and it is important, and the dots do connect, and it's going to get to the point where stuff comes out in the open because it has to. I mean, right now you see government officials saying UFOs are real and stuff like that, and it's just going to get to the point where people are already warming up to these ideas. Like, for instance, like I went and met my girlfriend's family, and they're very normal people. Probably, took the rolled up their sleeves, and everything, but they're still like, her dad's like, I don't trust the news. Like, they have these deep fakes and stuff, and it's like, am I even really looking at a real event that occurred? And like, they're talking about like the alien, like UFOs are everywhere, and that family in Nevada that where the aliens showed up, and this is just a normal American family that isn't even totally with the program. And
Yeah.
that's why, like, earlier on when I was saying there's more hope than people realize, it's like, I think maybe we're not at maybe we're not at like half or 80% or whatever. I don't know what the numbers are, but people are waking up. They are realizing, like, it doesn't happen as extremely fast and like as big for some people. Like, it takes them a little more time. They warm up to this thing, and then they warm up to the next thing, and then they warm up to the next thing. But I just feel like there is this hope. Like, people are kind of like, wait a minute,
Well,
that's real.
there's two of those. I think there's forces that are kind of moving along in tandem here. There's the people who are realizing not to trust the power structures and authorities that they've been indoctrinated to trust all our lives. But then once you've learned to turn away from that funhouse maze, then it's finding the actual truth, and without getting diverted, which is hard because a lot of people, they understand that this is a lie. Oh, that's a lie. But then they go look for the truth, and unfortunately,
Next thing they know, they're believing flat Earth.
yeah, well, that's a big psyop,
You
and
know,
that flat Earth is a huge, terrible psyop. And just to debunk flat Earth as quick as I can, it's like flat Earthers don't tend to be people who are well traveled, from what I can tell. Because if you want to do it for fun, go online via Kayak or Google or whatever, and book flights to and from Australia from Philadelphia, okay, and work out international dateline and time zones so you don't miss your $1,000 flights, okay, and realize that airplane pilots and people do this every day, all the time, and try to make flat Earth work and fly around the flat Earth using whatever airlines you want, and then let's talk.
yeah, you can literally fly around the planet.
Schedule Zoom meetings with people in other time zones.
We've all seen it from space. It's very awe-inspiring to see the planet from space. It's not round. It's an organism. You can tell it's alive when you look at it, and it's very, very intense. And I think that if everybody on Earth could experience that, there's a good chance that we'd all chill out and be a lot nicer to each other, like, overnight, because you just realize, like, wait a minute, that's us, just this thing floating there. Like, it's really awe-inspiring, and just, it's one of those things where I can see why Carl Sagan thought like his blue little dot speech would make people, like, world peace more possible, because it is a really inspiring speech, but unfortunately it didn't go as far as he thought it would.
Well,
But
there are people who listen to him, and that's a 2 out of 10, just like the Buckminster Fuller people. You
yeah,
know,
he warned us of a lot of stuff, that guy, and he also couldn't say a lot of things. I've heard that he knew more than he let off, and
they showed him stuff, and then he just, but he at least he wasn't like such a paid shill the way Neil deGrasse Tyson is.
yeah, yeah. I always like he's kind of like silly to the point where he's pretty
Him
easy
and
to laugh at.
yeah, him and Doctor Science, whatever his face is. Uh,
if people really like, I don't know. There's
they're
way
not
better people out there that you can look into that will tell you the real truth about stuff that's going on. That aren't that guy.
shills, shills,
Yeah,
Freemason shills. Yeah,
yeah, literally. Oh, and that's a frustrating part of this. That's something we can maybe talk about too, is the Freemasonry aspect. Which they don't like it when you talk about that on YouTube. Probably, I can see that
no.
maybe not going very well, but
Well, so a couple of things because even here in my local community, I've got people who are like, "Yay, join the local Freemasons. We're fundraising for the local basketball court or library or school or whatever." And anyone who wants to look it up, very simple online search. There's something called like the Freemason boy bride marriage ceremony. Okay, and I could pull it up here, but it's pretty. There's pictures of this all over the place, and so anyone who's talking about how great the Freemasons are, just please explain that to me, and then let's talk.
and I want to explain to people too, while we're on the subject. I have an uncle who's a Freemason. He's a third level, and he drunkenly told me, he's a Freemason and all this stuff. And from what I surmise, because he's trying to explain to me how like it's cool, you don't get it, it's not what you think it is, and it's because he really thinks that.
Right,
But he
right,
basically made it sound more sketchy because he's like, yeah, there's these levels, and then you kind of climb your way up, and the more you climb your way up, the more responsibility you get, you more you got to show up the lodge. And he's like, I kind of like being level 3 because it's like I get to hang out, I get to be a part of it, but I don't have to be a part of all these events and stuff. And it's like, so wait. It's like basically you take on more responsibility. The higher it makes sense. It's compartmentalized. And what I've heard and I believe is true, is that it's also like inverted because that's where the compass comes from. Is you go all the way up to the pyramid and then it goes up again once you get all the way to the top. Like you don't even realize like there's more.
right,
And so,
right.
but yeah, so it's really important, just like in the way where like there's also people who are quote unquote Satanists and they're doing it because they think it's edgy, like they're raised in the toxic Christian way where it's Christianity that was actually influenced by Satanism, ironically enough. But and then they retaliate and it's all about personal freedom and all. It's a distorted version of what it actually is. Those people aren't the enemies; they're just silly and they don't realize what's going on. They're not sacrificing in kids and stuff like that. They don't realize that this stuff is true. And if they did, they'd probably be ashamed of using it as some sort of edgelord thing to get back at their parents, which is the reality of what a lot of these people is that they're doing. Like it's kind of silly, but it is what it is. But it's like things are not, I don't know, like I said, not every single Freemason realizes what they're a part of and the evil that they're a part of. And then there's also people
I
who are
want to speak. I want to speak to that, Arkeem, because a lot of these Freemasons, especially in the lower degrees, apparently they don't find out that Freemasonry is Luciferian, Luciferin, as I call it. The
yeah.
god of Freemasonry is Lucifer, and this is according to Albert Pike, Manly P. Hall. I forget the other dude who is more of a whistleblower than an insider, like Steinitz, or I forget his name. Springmeyer, Fritz Springmeyer, okay, has done an excellent job. But the reason why the Freemasons, my understanding is they use a checkerboard imagery of white and black, is people like your uncle in the third degree, they're on the white side of Freemasonry, raising the money for basketball courts for kids and stuff like that. And that they believe that you go through the white to go through the black and go all the way through the black to get back towards God. Okay. And your uncle at only the third degree, he's experiencing the fun basketball fundraising stuff and not the
Exactly.
boy bride
Not
stuff.
realize that it's evil. And when I told them that, because dude, this was, even though I kind of I covered it up is what I did. I knew this stuff was going on since I was young, and I'm like, I wasn't even old enough to drink yet. He was having a beer with me because I'm like 20 or 19 or something like that. And I just told him like, dude, the Freemasons are Satanists, man. Like at the top, they're Satanists. And that's where he's like, no, it's not. And he even gave me this book where he's like,
Is he still like that?
yeah, I just try not to bring it up. He's also in the programs, like hardcore in the programs. They have memories of serving with him. I don't ever want to talk about it with him.
Okay, so then there's
Hard.
more history there beyond. I'm part of
It's
the I'm
too
a
hard.
part of
Yeah,
the
he's like
local
obsessed
chapter.
with Germany and stuff like that. His son has a Wizard of Oz poster in his room.
Oh, is that all the K Ultra family?
Oh
Big
yeah, big time.
paperclip.
Royalty on both sides.
Okay,
Swiss royalty on one side,
bloodline.
German royalty on the other side, on our side. Well, we're Rothschild. I have Rothschild DNA in my side.
So it's like no wonder he's a Freemason. I'm just surprised he's kept at the third degree.
Yeah, he's just because he's a good guy and he just wanted to join because I think his ironic. Oh yeah, that's right. On the Swiss royalty side of the family, there's a grandpa or something like that was a Freemason, and he did it to kind of buddy up to him. So there's an irony in that, and I'm pretty sure he was a 32nd or 33rd level. And I met this guy and kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies, to be honest with you.
Well, once you're at that level, you know you're working for user for. You've probably joined like the Red Shoe Club for people who know about that, and you've done the adrenochrome rituals for sure, and X, Y, and Z. So
yeah, here's another interesting thing about the Freemasons to just kind of add to the subject. My girlfriend's really into like Tim Robinson. He's like this comedian guy. It's gonna seem off topic, but it'll come to the topic. He's got this show called Detroiters, and we went to Detroit for a concert, and we thought, oh, why not check out some of the spots from Detroiters, right? And I remember like there's this interview with the other guy, not Tim Robinson, but the black dude. I forget his name. I think it's Sam Richardson. He was like talking about how like, oh yeah, like the Temple Bar is the Freemason bar, or I can't remember what he said, but he made some joke about there's rituals, and I had to drink cow blood or something like that, and they're just like, oh, funny joke, and just kind of
so funny.
I was kind of like, wait, that's weird, and so then like we go to this, check out the Temple Bar, which is the show. They're always going to the Temple Bar at the show and drinking at the Temple Bar. It's the fucking Freemason bar. That's why it's called the Temple Bar. And then it's right across the street from the biggest Freemason temple, I'm pretty sure, in the United States. The thing's huge.
What city is this?
Detroit.
Detroit. Wow. Really?
Yeah, surprisingly enough, Detroit.
Okay, Detroit.
Well, think about it. That city got eaten alive and destroyed. It doesn't surprise me. Like, that's the kind of shit they do. Like, so, yeah, and it was just like, it just really is true to me. Like, it sucks because I think Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson are funny guys, but they're probably up to some evil shit. And it's like you just realize that after a while, like, damn, like all these celebrities, like, when I heard like the Jack White thing, Jack White's into adrenochrome. Like the other day, the first song I learned on guitar was Dead Leaves on the Dirty Ground. Okay, right. That fucking hurts my feelings. Like that breaks my heart.
Ricky, you should know better than anyone. Half his music, for all we know, is probably stolen.
Probably. I mean, right? I wouldn't be surprised if I learned later. I remember looking at the list, like, because when the tribunals happened, I remember looking at the list of songs that were mine because they gave it to me, and just crying because like it was way more than it was pages, and there were so many songs that I had no clue. I'd listened to them millions of times. I didn't feel any connection to them. I had no fucking clue I made them, and
do you even like them, or are you like, it's like, that's a shit song, I don't even like it?
I've never had that happen to me before. However, I have had it happen where I'm like, damn, this person ruined my songs. Like, like this is a shitty version of it. I have had that happen before.
I can see that.
Yeah, and I always got to reiterate with that too. I'm not the only person that they did that to. I know that I'm heavily involved with it. I wrote a lot of songs, and probably more than most, but I'm not the only person that they did that to. Donald Marshall was probably one of them. He talked about it.
Who?
Donald Marshall.
Oh yeah. I was about to call. I was mentioning Donald Marshall. I was about to say
stuff he said that conflicts with my memories. So
let's talk about that, because Donald Marshall, there are a lot of people who.
Here's where my is. He said that he wrote songs for Britney Spears, and that he decided what uniform she was going to wear in music videos and stuff like that. And listen, man, I know that's not true. I know more than this fucking guy does about what's going on, okay? Chiron Studios was the studio of Dennis Pop. It's now called Maratone Studios. They changed the name because now his protege, Max Martin, owns the studios. But it used to be called Chiron, okay? I remember getting woken up in a clone center as a child. I think I was around 8 years old. Same guy, and I saw a documentary about Chiron Studios. I've seen the guy in it. I don't remember his name, but I remember the guy. He picked me up and he'd go, "Oh, hey, little boy, do you remember me?" And I'd go, "No." And every time he thought it was so fucking crazy that I didn't remember him.
Right.
And he got a big kick out of it. And he called me the little boy who sings. The little boy who sings. And they would sometimes bring me to like elite parties and for like as a sex toy and stuff like that. But also they would bring me to the studio and there'd be the side room and they'd tell me, sing something. And I would sing and they'd get all fucked up and eventually they'd do sexual things to me. And basically the ritual is they would make me sing, they'd get a melody, then they'd go in the studio and start building a song off of it. And in the other room, the guys would be SRA, sexually ritually abusing me, okay? And there was this hit light. Dennis Pop called it the hit light, and the red light would go on while they're working on the song. That meant that they were gathering the loosh energy. That's what the fucking hit light was. Right, and you can look up documentaries about it. They talk about the red hit light. The red hit light was not just like, he's just like, oh, it's a hit. We got to turn on the light. No, it's a ritual thing. It's connected to the red rooms. It's connected to the red shoe stuff. It's the color red is their symbol because it's blood. And what they would do is they'd force me to orgasm and then kill me during that and then put that in the song. And that's why I didn't remember them every time is because to be a new clone, didn't remember what happened to me. And they would be nice to me at first. And I also remember Britney Spears. I remember that she'd always be, oh, a little boy, Jacob. I think I was Jacob. And I remember being like, she like, how are you doing? And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know you. What are you doing? She thought it was a game at first. And then eventually she realized, like, okay, I literally don't remember her. And it got darker and darker the longer she was there with these guys. And she you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why they brought her when she's 15.
They were abusing her too, right?
Yes, and putting her loose in the songs. And they also had clones of us,
right?
All of them that they sell to the elite, including the boy bands. And the way that they do this stuff, okay, is what they do is they get the parents to sign the kids the contracts before they turn 18. The parents have to be involved. And what they tell you is, listen, they give you a new name. They give you a new hair color, even they tell you have to wear eye contacts and you'll get fined for it and stuff like that if you don't. And you sign this contract saying you're going to get this new identity. And they even give you fake, hip and cool parents and stuff.
It sounds like the Disney
you don't know. It's literally what the Disney people do. It's all Disney's all part of that. And what they do is you're handing your kids over to them. You're signing over the rights to your children to them. And you think that, okay, now my kid's going to kind of have to live this lie life. You literally get fined for being in public with your own parents and stuff. Yeah. And what you don't know when you're signing this up is they erase your memories of your children and they erase the children's memories of their parents. And they give you implanted memories of the parents being your real parents and their handlers, obviously. And then you're pimped out. You like they make more money off of pimping out these celebrities than they do off their music practically. Literally, it's true. I'm almost thankful that I'm in the dark on this and that I'm not some famous entity because then they'd be using me more because I'd be more well known. But also, I do know that I'm using rituals. I think I was taken last night. I have this memory of being at a table with a woman and I'm a little boy and there's another little boy and I'm looking at the menu and he's just like zoning out. And I'm like, why isn't he looking at the menu? And she's like, oh, it's the Google Pixel. He can look at it in his brain. And I woke up. That's the memory that I have. It's like, I don't know if that's real.
So let's talk about that. For people who don't know about this, there's Donald Marshall, he talks about this. It's called REM state consciousness transfer, REM-driven cloning.
It's definitely real, and was part of the reason why his testimony is hugely important.
Right. So when you go to sleep, they can take your consciousness, transport it into a clone body that is compatible with your consciousness, and then basically do what they will to you in that clone body for the duration of you being in that body, which in general is for at least a few hours.
Yeah, and then and then you wake up, and then through time distortion they can make it longer if they want. And then you wake up and you either literally don't remember it because they'll memory do take precautions to try to make you not remember if they don't want you to. But sometimes it just kind of feels like especially if you didn't know about this community and have context, right? right? If you had no context, it would definitely just seem like weird dreams or something. But once you have the context, you're like, damn, you know what I mean? Like I've had like another thing that's really messed up that they did to me is I had this information. I don't mean to hijack your interview. I'll start interviewing you in a second. I don't mean to talk the whole interview, but I had this information. Whitberg, he altered out. He was Heinrich. And he was talking to me. He was trying to talk to Jeffrey, my alter. And I was like, I'm not there. But how's Jeffrey doing? What's Jeffrey doing in like the real world? And he's like, well, he's going on vacation to New Atlantis with his family. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then so I get taken that night by Solar Warden. All right. And I'm in this clone room. And that night that I got taken, Kat had a bruise on her wrist. There was physical evidence. Got taken by Solar Warden, and they brought me to this room full of clones, and it was all people I knew, people I loved and cared about. And they said, look, and they brought out my son, Benny. I had this son, Benny, on Centurion 5. He died in a river accident. We didn't have, it was when we were building the colony and stuff. We didn't have med beds and stuff. They didn't come down and rescue him. He literally died. And that was the last time I saw him. Well, they had a clone of him. And they basically told me, look, you can spend time with your son if you want, and not only that, they activated him. So he came out and he's confused. He's like, Daddy, where am I? And I tell him, don't worry, son, everything's gonna be okay. And this Nordic, Shami, whatever the fuck you want to call him, I call him the Ice King because he wears the blue uniform and he's got a long blue beard and he's old looking. And he's like, why are you telling your son everything's gonna be okay? It's not. We're gonna torture him. And I was like, and he starts crying and freaking out. And he's like, don't. I'm like, no, he's not going to do that to you. And he's like, well, if you listen to us, we won't. We can make magic happen for you, or we can make terror happen for you. He's just like
the heaven or hell choice. The choice.
Well, yeah, this idea that the Nordics are nice and benevolent. I can't really. I don't know, man. But I don't think so nice. Maybe some of them are. That's another thing is we think that ET are going to be all good or all bad. Maybe some of them are good. Some of them are great and want to help us, and then there's others who don't. That's probably more likely the truth. Anyway, he basically tells me, look, your alter Jeffrey that works for Nachtwaffen, he's going to New Atlantis because he's doing some spy stuff. He's trying to take this golden disc. We know he's trying to take the golden disc. Tell him that we have loved ones of his. They couldn't relay the message to him. They couldn't get him, but they could get me. And they knew that through my memories and the fact that they're all bleeding through and stuff, they knew it would get to him. So they basically told me, look, we got people that he loves too. We have Johanna. We have clones of her, stuff like that. He's just like, just tell him, don't take that golden disc. We know what the fuck he's doing. Don't even try it. So it's like I wasn't really there on vacation. Like even Heinrich thought it was just a vacation. He had no clue that he was compromising me. That's how crazy this stuff is. Like
it's a communication, however they need to get the message through to you.
Yeah, and I communicated with my clone the next day or that alter, and it wasn't like inside me. I think it felt like it was outside of me. It was some telepathic or something. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but he basically told me, I was like, what happened? You know, is everything cool? And he's like, oh, it's all fine. Nachtwaffen and Solar Warden came to an agreement. It's all misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding.
Yeah, and you know, that's another thing is your alters aren't always going to be honest with you. Like I knew there was more to all misunderstanding. Yeah, right. But that was a really interesting situation, and it proved to me like, wait, we should probably be careful what we talk about in these messages on Fedbook and shit. Like, holy fuck! Like,
I want to ask you about this, Arkeem. So here's your son. Here's Centurion 5. He dies. Unbeknownst to you, they have a clone body of him.
Yeah.
When they activate that clone, because the original son died in that river accident. Yeah. Right? When they activate that clone, does that clone have does your son's soul come back to that clone, a piece of it from the afterlife, or how does that work? Because
to be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure that all out.
Okay.
From what I understand is and this is something that's kind of fucking with me too, and I realized it because I watched Oblivion last night, which is like this Tom Cruise film.
Yeah,
off Disclosure, right? And I'm pretty sure the way the clones work is like, yes, they can take my consciousness and put it in the clone and have me kind of be all set up, ready to go because of that, which is valuable. But if they're cheap and they have time on their hands, they can literally just get the clone and my consciousness is still in there, like as a baby consciousness, and it is me. and they can grow it from the ground up, and but it is me. It's like a copy of me, but it's me. It's still me. It's not me. And that's the mind fuck with this
Well,
clone shit.
where's the soul? But then is your soul split between you wearing
There's
the
a soul.
baseball
There's
hat
a
there?
baby soul inside of a clone. There's a baby soul inside of a clone.
And then is that separate from you, from your
It's my
soul?
same soul, but it's like not, but it is. It's a
So it's like a
copy
break
of it.
off. It's like a shard. It's like a shard, a shard off the main soul, like a
Well,
soul
it's
fragment.
kind of like limited thinking. Like a soul is a limited resource. It's not. It's
So
an
it can be
endless.
split.
So it's not just like every shard. Yes, it's a broken piece of my soul, but it's also in a way it's all of my soul. Like it's not separate from me.
So it's holographic. The whole is contained within each piece.
Yeah, something like that. Like at the very least, through my higher self, like I can't even claim that I understand all of this, but I do understand a lot of it. I know there's versions of me that understand all of it. But from what I understand, is every version of me, every clone of me, every alter, they're all me. They're not me. And I do as a conscious being, whatever your actuality of your consciousness is, like it's all me, I'm pretty sure. Like, and that's one of the things that's like really hard to wrap your mind around when you're first waking up. Like I remember people telling me about my alters, people telling me about what I've done in programs and stuff like that. Like before I got a lot of memories back when I first got into this, and I'm like, how the hell? I would never do that. Like these people, I kind of for a moment, like the altar thing made me like, this is too much. Like this is crazy, right? And I had to step back, and then I was like a lot of things, like it's hard to rip the band-aid off. I didn't want to accept it, but I had to rip the band-aid off, and I did, and it's a reality. But yeah, every version of you is you, and that's and that from what I understand, maybe there's other people out there that maybe understand it a little bit better than me, but yeah, every clone of you is you, and
To be philosophical about it, I kind of think about it like past lives or
yeah,
future lives and
it's
incarnations.
the same
Apparently, we've
thing.
all had hundreds or thousands or millions
And
or
this is
whatever.
technology on Earth that doesn't make us remember our past lives, and that same technology it's kind of like if they put us in a clone body and then put us back in our body. It's kind of like they don't have to erase your memory because there's this weird. Yolanda talked about it in the interview where I did with her. There's this weird soul trap kind of thing where when you come here, it grabs you
The
and
veil, the
it deletes
reset,
your memories and
the
makes sure that
soul
you
trap.
know, like, what, who am I? Where am I from?
That
Like
might be
it's
the
not
soul
normal.
trap.
Yeah, consciousness is supposed to kind of continue on.
Right.
Like it's not supposed to. This is an unnatural thing that they artificially made. Like the whole planet's kind of under your spell. And
Remote viewers have spoken to this, the soul trap, where if you don't do it right, and maybe it's being dismantled apparently, and I don't want to spread fear, but when you die, there's a grid. They use a soul scalping or soul trapping technology to then theoretically recycle us. And I could see that, but there's ways to get out of that soul trap. Like you don't have to go blindly towards light. You can apparently turn around and visualize other pathways out.
yeah, I don't mean to, and I'm sorry for I talked a lot. But yeah, so I guess like what is disclosure to you? Like what is I don't know if I already asked that question, but like what is disclosure and why is it so important? Like for everyone, like like what does it actually mean? You're talking about okay, like I said, we got the conference circuit, and I see you as someone who you want to turn it more into more than just the conference circuit, right? So what
Yeah.
does that entail?
So
What
so
does that look
it
like?
looks like med bed centers in every major city and town around the world. It means everyone's got a smart glass quantum phone if they want that they can use to access any amazing services and needs that we have. It means that we become what's known as a level one civilization, where everyone is fed, everyone is housed, everyone is educated. There's no more war and disease. That's a level one civilization. We can join our galactic brothers and sisters, and that's what it looks like for me. And I realize that that's a tall order. It's going to take a lot to get from A to Z, but that's what it
Yeah,
looks like.
and one of the things that we need to remember is every journey starts with the first step. So It's a journey. You're not going to get there overnight. That doesn't mean you don't just start walking. It doesn't mean you don't start climbing that mountain that is disclosure, right? So you can get to that peak, that cusp, that precipice that is the realization, the mass awakening, the breaking of the matrix and the falling of this artificial soul trap system that
Mhm.
the earth has been fabricated to be under.
Well, that journey, I got to speak to that kind of as an organizer. The first thing is getting what we call a unity of consensus. Okay, we all agree on what we're going for, and maybe we have different roles in that movement to make it happen, but we all have power and responsibility from that role, and we're all getting the full, advancing the full disclosure movement, no egos. And part of it is, particularly with MK Ultra survivors, and secret space program survivors, and we could call them victims, if we will, and former slaves, and people are still being enslaved, okay, as assets. Hopefully for better programs these days than all the other stuff. But hopefully people are they're not only they're waking up to it, but they're I don't know. I get the feeling there are people within these programs who are not only waking up, but are trying to turn the pendulum the other way. They're
And what it
trying.
is, what you're seeing here too is like, as an insider, I can tell you, mutinies are hard because like the first, like you need to have you need to have a good consensus. You need to have a good amount of people on your side and all be on the same page and gung ho about it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And if you fail, it's not just you who will face consequences, it's your children, it's your families, it's the people you love. So the idea that, why aren't these military guys doing more? Why aren't these insiders who want to stop this shit doing more? Well, you got to realize that they have dirt on everyone. And even if you're a good person who has no, like, quote unquote dirt and you're clean, they still, you probably have a family, you probably have people you care about. That's enough for them.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where it just needs to all happen at the right time. We need to create the environment as like the public. I feel like we need to make it, it's becoming more acceptable, and it just needs to get to this point where they can topple the empire, so to speak. And I feel like it sort of does have to happen in sort of a swift move because, yeah, it's going to boil. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to kind of be like a gradual thing, but also there is going to be a huge moment. There's going to be a huge moment, and it's not going to be fun. There's probably going to be a lot of bloodshed, and it's probably not going to be a great time, but once the issue is addressed, we can move forward, and we do have to address the issue. So,
Well, I want to speak to that because healing is a big part of that too. In that, in getting to that consensus unity of will, there's a lot of people who are survivors who have gotten, what is it, gamma and omega programming, right? Where gamma is where you don't trust each other and you're self-destructive and you want to
100%.
become addicted to things, and then omega is like literally suicidal programming, right?
Yeah. And that's an important thing to bring up too, because we're not all, there are people in this community who are going to be a little mentally stable. And also, at the very least, we're probably not all going to be shining examples of public speakers, but that doesn't mean we're not telling the truth. A lot of us do have a lot of problems. And that's the thing that bothers me is there's people out there who think, okay, if you were a quote unquote super soldier or whatever, then wouldn't you be all muscled out and but it's like, no, you don't
Some
understand.
people are. Ismail Perez looks pretty good. He's muscled out, but you don't have to be
And there's
muscled out.
definitely people like that out there, and there's also the people out there who literally have real military connections, like Zender. What's his name? Something.
Anthony Zender.
Yeah, he's literally, or Daryl. Daryl literally has actual real life military connections. Like he didn't just kind of get, he kind of was in it. Like it stepped into it willingly in a way. Like he didn't realize the full extent of what was going on until it was too late. Like that's how it kind of works. But
Well,
yeah,
he has memories of being tortured by Michael Aquino. Very
yeah,
bad.
that's a huge piece of this. I mean, I'm pretty sure he was a part of Montauk as well. He showed up there. Um, Good friends with Preston. Um, and he was definitely a part of Project Ibis, like without a doubt, like a huge part of Project Ibis. Um, oh man, Christy Campbell, talked about the owl man and how she didn't really think it was human. She kind of had this impression that it was like a shapeshifter. And then she said, "Oh, I think she messaged me." And she's like, "I think it was Michael Aquino." And it makes so much sense because you even look at him and you almost think like I almost thought when I saw him like owl.
He
Yeah,
looks like from
kind of like
Buck
an owl-like
Rogers.
guy. It made sense to me.
He
But
looks
he's
like the Falcon guy, Hawkman from Buck
yeah,
Rogers.
yeah, but also he was seen as a shapeshifter by Daryl, and he was more like a snake-like being. But these beings, and that's another thing, is like I've always talked about how Marduk for me was an alligator, kind of looking almost reptilian, and people say, "Well, no, that's not true. He was humanoid." And it's like, look, man, I don't know. That's how he presented himself to me. That's how he presented himself to you. Neither of us are lying. Okay,
Yeah.
that's my. They can shapeshift. Who knows which one he's lying to? Maybe he was humanoid and he was lying to me, trying to appear reptilian to be more terrifying.
I mean,
I don't know.
would it surprise me if someone looked at Michael Aquino and saw a negative reptilian aspect? No, I would totally expect that. That wouldn't surprise me. When I shook David Copperfield, the magician's hand, at the end of one of his performances in Atlantic City years ago when I went to go see him with my family, I got to shake. The moment I was shaking his hand, his eyes turned jet black on me. Jet black. No one could take that away from me. And I was stuttering as I was talking to him because his eyes turned black on me. It surprised me so much. And then, I later found out that he's allegedly one of these sold out, quote unquote, demon magicians.
And of course, David Blaine has a whole. Doesn't he have a whole South Park episode based on him where they make fun of him?
I wouldn't be surprised that not only him,
like all these people, like for instance, like the J-Lo episode, like because I had the interview with Daryl where it's like these guys know about this stuff and they hate them, and that's why they love making fun of them is because they suck, right? You know what I mean?
South Park guys.
Yeah, the South Park guys.
Well, I don't know. So I think they like making fun of them, but they're also, to me, on the inside, as far as I can tell. So it's like Trey Parker and all that.
I think this is the way I look at it because I watched some of their stuff. I watched one of their shows about it kind of touched upon the rolling up the sleeves kind of thing a little bit, and it kind of poked fun at that. And I think they have to kind of dance within these lines.
Right.
And that show, what they showed us, like there's one side is like these kids are heroes for standing up for the vaccines, and then on the other side, this guy was like these kids are heroes because they believe like these vaccines are bad and they're trying to help people, and you're sitting here saying they're evil. Fuck you. And there's the two reporters arguing with each other at which one's good. And I think what they're trying to say is like I don't think they necessarily said the Q following kids or whatever that they had like a name for them. I don't think they necessarily said they were bad, but also I feel like if they just full on made an episode where they showed what was really going on there, they get pulled off the air, man. They got to dance within the lines, I think, and that's why they can't like blatantly like they made the show about J-Lo, so they didn't go into the fact that she's a witch that is part of the Chrome and all that, and is a part of killing kids and all these terrible things, and then go into
naughty Hollywood
shreds and make fun of her because they felt like she deserved it.
Yeah,
but I don't know. But yeah, who knows, man? Maybe they are. It's probably really hard to not get compromised, and if you're in that industry at all, even if you're against it. It's probably very hard to not get compromised, but I will say that I've enjoyed their show over the years, and they've had some good messages and made fun of some really like Hillary Clinton, certain people. They've done a really good job at shitting on them, and I can't help it.
I agree. I agree. They have done a lot to kind of shit on liberal wokeness and
just in general, like just like celebrity worship. It's stupid.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they've done a really good job of doing that. So
I'm still trying to figure out if they're disclosure or they're predictive programming, I guess is
it's always really hard. And it's like another thing. That's another thing with we'll bring it up while we're here. I made a video reviewing The Sound of Freedom. Mm-hmm. And man, that's a hard maze to navigate, is it not? Because yes, the public is getting brought to attention that, okay, there's this thing, it's real, it actually exists. But then you think about it and you're like, yeah, they are watering it down. They're watering it down. Like they let people think that it's this far off, removed thing that's happening in Central America. And it's like, no, dude, it's happening in your hometown to kids that are born in America.
Something underneath their feet right now.
Right.
People are
And then you look at like this, the sexual assault hotline is connected to the Clintons and all these things. So I guess the best way I could say is hijack the programming. Use it to open the door. The programming is getting people on board with it, but then maybe they're watering it down. Well, the conversation's open. Let's not put up with the watering down. When people out there watching this, when you talk about the movie with other people, maybe try to open their mind to like the fact, like, dude, Pizzagate isn't just some crazy conspiracy theory. You can look up the documents, you can look up the emails, and if you can read and use common sense, period, like something shady as fuck happened. Like, you know what I mean? Not the.
I mean, all you have to do is go look up James Alefantis' now deleted but web archived deleted Twitter feed under Jimmy Comet Pizza, and that stuff is just outright. Those are pedophile tweets, and it's pretty obvious for anyone to see. I mean,
yeah, and not only that, like, you know, them asking for pizza and hot dogs, and then to spend this much time with a pizza and this much time with a hot dog. It's like, because like, yeah, some people are like, well, maybe they're just drugs, and it's like, no, if you're gonna do some cocaine, you're not like, let me spend 30 minutes with the cocaine.
Right. You don't use pedo language for $65,000 hot dogs.
And it is, and it's one of those things too, where it's like, I kind of remember those symbols, and that's all real, man. That's all real. And not only that, the government, the FBI released those symbols, and we're like, yeah, these are the symbols they use. And then people are like trying to say it's a conspiracy. The programming is crazy because to me, what's wild is it's almost like people are like parrots, and they see the media, and the media says something, and they just parrot it, and they think they're
7 out of 10. That's 7 out of 10.
Yeah, they think they're thinking when they're literally just being programmed to not think. Like, it's mind-blowing when you realize it, when you wake up to it. You know, it's just like sad. It really is sad. Like, because like, yeah, it's just like they're just telling you what to be angry about. A good example of that would be like, okay, the Ukraine war. That's a touchy subject. But basically, here's where I was at. The instant that happened, I was just like, okay, so what about Syria? What about Iraq? What about all these other countries that got bombed? Why did we not care about them, but all of a sudden Ukraine? And then everybody's just like, they got the Ukraine flags, they got stickers on their cars, and it's like, whether you have an opinion, even if you're just neutral, it's just weird.
Well, let me speak to that. I want to speak to Ukraine because that's a really good and very time-appropriate topic, Arkeem. Ukraine, first of all, wasn't really what put Ukraine on the map. Was the 2014 Clinton State Department under Obama installed a neo-Nazi fascist regime in Ukraine at that time. And that's what all this stuff that the Hunter Biden laptops are leaking is all these deals with the Ukrainian uranium deals, Uranium One and whatnot in Ukraine, and then also in China, okay, with the Chinese Communist Party, which has been taken over by the Rothschilds, as far as I understand it, okay, and Benjamin Fulford. Now, in terms of Ukraine, Putin, since the installation of that 2014 neo-Nazi regime, they put in U.S.-backed and funded bioweapons labs with France and Italy and Switzerland and all these other Germany, all these other countries. So then you ask, well, why are all these bioweapons labs in Ukraine? The reason why they're there is because if you want to bio-attack people, you want to have people to experiment on, and then once you've experimented on the Slavic and Russian peoples, and you've got the weapons from bringing them in right there on the doorstep. Now you've got bioweapons labs to then release whatever bioweapons you want right there on the doorstep of Russia. And Putin, for a number of years, was telling the Ukrainian leadership, puppet leadership, remove this stuff in the U.S., remove this stuff. If you don't do it, I'm going to do it. So however many years later, he goes in, he's cleaning it up. They're finding, in addition to bioweapons labs, they're finding all the human trafficking and the adrenochrome and labs and all of that. Okay, and that's what and
all the money they're giving them. Like, that's just sketchy.
Right.
That's just 100% sketchy beyond belief.
My understanding is that in addition to all that, Ukraine is one of the last countries as a stronghold to the Khazarian mafia at this time. So they're getting kicked out of Kazakhstan, where the people have rose up in revolution pretty much, and their government got toppled. That was supposed to be a new world order country. That got toppled. Ukraine, that's why all these new world order globalists keep coming out on the world stage and saying we have to send all this money and weaponry and equipment and keep Ukraine and Zelensky afloat. That's why. Because they see Ukraine as a stronghold country for their
And then you
Khazarian.
see that Zelensky is literally an actor.
He's literally an actor.
So it's just like, dude, so that means he's going to be good at acting people.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's you can write this stuff. It's like Ronald Reagan was an actor, right? It's like, I don't know.
The trend's already been set decades ago.
Yeah.
So why would it be a surprise that they would put a PSYOP actor in as the head of a PSYOP country?
Right. And
Ukraine never existed before World War II, people. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a touchy subject. But you know, whether people, whatever people want to believe, they can believe. But the reality is, there is nefarious things happening there. There are neo Nazis, and there's some serious problems. Serious problems that aren't being addressed. They're just being totally overlooked.
That's our message. But that's our message, Arkin. People can believe whatever they want to believe, but until people understand and believe and know the truth, we're not going to get to our Star Trek future. And that in a nutshell is the full disclosure movement to me. Is taking all the people who want to believe the comfortable, Orwellian, blue pill that they want to believe, okay, and actually offer them the red pill. And when enough people have taken the red pill and see it for what it is, then we've got the first steps towards real change.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, like none of it's going to happen overnight, but it's already happening. There's such huge things happening right now. We've seen the testimony recently of the UAP conference in Washington, and some of these guys are saying some pretty mind-blowing stuff. The human trafficking aspect of things has been testified to Congress now at this point by military, personnel, ex-military personnel. And I feel like there's a lot, like I just want to remind people that like it's okay to be hopeful and believe that good things are happening, and that's kind of how the universe works. Is you kind of have to, right? And
I mean, this is a time to be hopeful because,
yeah, exactly.
Again, like I said, there are proofs. Underground military bases are being cleaned up. Pedophile CEOs and politicians are being rounded up and brought to justice. You've got guys like what was his face? Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney. Maybe it was Dick Cheney. He was in the months before he died from cancer. Okay, he was wearing a leg tracking, like a leg bracelet, ankle like type monitor thing on his right leg for months and months and months and months and months. And then he goes and he puts it on his left leg and he's walking around. And a reporter says, "Hey, Mr. Cheney, why are you wearing your leg brace on the opposite leg?" And he says, "Oh, I got tired of wearing it on the right one." and then so that was a leg tracker. Okay, people.
Yeah.
And later on, after he dies, his daughter goes on TV and during like one of these like, ABC Today interviews, she's talking about how when her father was executed last July or whatever, or last March, right? Forget the month.
Did not know about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of these things out there.
Yeah, it makes sense. They're all heavily connected to all these programs and stuff. During IBIS, what they did is they programmed the children to believe that the Queen of England was mother, and then
George Herbert Walker Bush was dad, father.
Yeah, father.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's all connected to their little cult. Of course, Dick Cheney's a part of it all, and
yep.
Yeah, it's really evil shit that they do. Cut people open and stuff while they're fucking them, and just really.
Satanic. It's satanic.
And it's
It's.
woosh farming. They get energy
Yeah.
from it. They really get off on it. The reptilians particularly get off on it too.
Arkin, can you speak to that? What is the state of reptilian control, or lack thereof, over the
To be
Earth?
honest with you, like it's all really confusing to me because I hear all these different things from other people, and from what I remember, is the Shahami or the Anunnaki or the humanoid ET and the reptilians are friends. They were friends. Last time I checked, I mean that was like, but my memory of that was literally like Egyptian times, so things could have changed.
I mean,
Uh,
to me, they might have cut deals for sure. They're probably not so closely aligned, but I think they're aligned enough that they can agree to harvest the Earth together without killing each other.
According to Daryl James's testimony, who I just spoke to, and he has some very clear memories. Um, there is at least a faction of these humanoid ET, the Nordics as they're called by the military, that is not aligning with the reptilians and is at war with them. There's at least a faction, whether it's all of them or not. I can't be sure because that was one of the things I brought up on the show to him. Is a lot of people call these guys the Sha'ami, but you can tell you're talking about the same beings. And he's like, well, maybe they're the same beings, but like not the same beings. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what it is. So it's one of those things where, because it's like, okay,
But they got factions for sure.
Right? If you met a Russian and an American,
Right. They're different factions.
totally different people, different
Yes.
beliefs, different lifestyles, not the same thing. And so for us to assume that the Anunnaki, the humanoid ET, whatever you want to call them, Shahami,
Right.
I forget
Right.
what Daryl called them. He had a different name for them. Whatever you want to call them, they're the same species, and maybe if there's different names for them. Well, Americans call themselves Americans. They don't normally say I'm an Earthling. Same thing with a Russian. They normally probably say, they're Russian. They wouldn't say I'm an Earthling. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. One of the things that I really need to do is I need to do like a memory defrag again, so my memories are clear, so I can actually go into my memories when I want to, because I used to have that ability, and I'm sure they have done something to me to take it back from me again. But I need to do a defrag because it's important to have clear memory. And I got to be honest with you, my memories are all over the place. It's a Swiss cheese effect. It's like there's a wall and there's always little holes in it. And I can kind of look through the little holes and see some stuff, but I can't see all of it. And in order for me to understand the little holes, I would need the whole picture. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, my approach to that is you start mapping it out and you just fill in the map. And then now at least you know where the holes are and then where you can focus to try to fill in those holes.
Yeah, and for me, I do this show, and a lot of times I'll talk about stuff and say how stuff is true, and I'll talk about things that are reality, and it's not because I remember them, it's because I did an interview with someone or something else, and a lot of people view that as taking other people's testimony, and I think that's pretty stupid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's just talk about reality. We don't have to dance.
I've heard this being thrown around in the community a lot, and my position on it is a very pragmatic, practical one. If someone's an experiencer and they've suffered abuse at the hands of any of these tormentors and any of these programs, then God bless them if they're able to monetize or even make a living off testifying. Great, and then that's why it's important to call them testimonies, because you can't copyright someone's testimony because it's their testimony. It's not some intellectual fabrication of theirs.
Exactly. Yeah, testimony. And I just kind of thought about, I was calling it a story because that movie at the end of it, Sound of Freedom, just talked about how we're calling it testimony because that's what it is. It's not a story that was made up, but they're just talking about how, like, that's important. Like, stepping forward and just saying, hey, this happened to me. Like, that's really important. They're talking about that when it's applied to the sex trafficking situation. But that applies to all this stuff too. It's important to just step forward and say, "Hey, this happened to me." Like, that's the first step, and that's the step that we're already full stride walking now. And it's just like, okay, your whole thing is like, okay, what are we walking towards? Let's like get together and be on the same path and walk towards the same thing. And for me, that's the whole reason why I made this channel. That's the whole reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think a good advice that I have for everybody in this community is we're not always going to agree on every little freaking detail, and sometimes personalities conflict and stuff like that, and people don't get along. But let's try to get over that. Like, let's try to just get on the same page. There's too much at stake. There's too many lives to be saved. Like, there's just too much at stake for us to be at ends with each other, arguing with each other. I don't like so and so. I'm not going to talk to you because you talked to so and so. Whatever. Like, I just feel like we need to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now, I understand there's going to be certain situations where there are people in the community who are literally kind of dangerous. So people decide to stay away from them. 100%, that's valid. But also at the same time, like, let's try to be friends with each other and not turn our backs on each other, because the only thing that we have is each other. Like, for
Let,
instance,
let me speak to that, Akima, because the best way to deal with that is to focus on the goals. Because when people are focused on the goals, then the side fighting and the squabbles and the individual stuff tends to go away. And then even, and I've experienced this, and I know you have, and I'm newer to this community. I full disclosure wasn't part of any of these programs as far as I can tell in this timeline. Is that a lot of the people have had bad interactions with each other. Again, a lot of these folks who got alters that came out under a very stressful situation and threatened each other by waving guns at the computer screen at each other and talked mad crazy shit. And what do you know? There's programming that's been put intentionally into each and every one of you.
what do you call it? Because you're actually the first person who brought that up to me. There's Omega programming, which is a suicide programming. Would you call that?
It's Gamma. Gamma is supposed. I think it's Gamma, and then Theta might be assassin or psychic assassin training.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Is like, and there's an irony. Is the person that you're talking about who's waving the guns around and stuff. I was telling everybody what was happening. Look, this is their altar.
It's an altar. Don't get offended.
Months later, they're like sending me like, "I'm sorry, it was my altar. I was freaking out." Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you know what I mean? I get it. It's like, I understand why people are hurt and they're not going to talk to this guy anymore. You get it, but also, like, I understand that he freaked out because he's an MK Ultra survivor. Right. Like, that's how it is, man. We're not all going to be mentally stable, pristine, no. Mentally healthy.
How could you be? How could you go through getting your clone raped and tortured and killed at the same time over and over and over again, and then you're going to be totally fine? Yeah, I don't expect you to be fine. Why would you be fine?
Yeah, it's going to cause you a lot of problems.
No one's going to be fine with that. I wouldn't be fine with that. No.
Yeah, and just accepting this as reality, it's like you kind of have to isolate yourself. It kind of feels isolating because it's like you said, 7 out of 10 people don't kind of understand.
But so, like, I want to be philosophical. I want to be philosophical about the whole isolating thing. I did a quantum hypnosis and healing therapy session the other week, and part of the briefing was, and if you accept law of one and reincarnation, we've all lived multiple lives. We've all been rapists and killers and killed and raped and murdered and abused, and kings and queens and paupers and lovers, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So from a philosophical perspective, whether or not any of this stuff happened to me in this life, in a program, or to me when I lived in the Middle Ages in 1500s Italy, doesn't really matter. What matters is where we are now, the condition of the need to liberate humanity, that goal. And then with that in mind comes a lot of healing if we can focus on the goal.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah. It's all about getting everybody on the same page. And what do you think is the best method for, you talk about these roles, everybody has different roles and stuff. How do we get everybody on the same page with that? Who has what roles?
So what I would do is I would take everyone who wants to get involved and look at our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So, for example, if you're good at music, I would start singing and playing about this. Britney Spears, we were talking about her earlier, hate her music, but I'm a big fan of the Free Britney movement. She did a music video literally of her breaking into a cloning center, okay, and destroying all the clones to free herself from being a sex toy. Okay, that's a good start with Disclosure. Personally, for me, I'd love to see a full length science reality movie based on Montauk Project and CERN and all of this and the movement based on reality that we're talking about, kind of like the real life Stranger Things without the whitewashing. As a full length movie, that's what I would like to see for
I'm
starters.
sure people would love that. That would be weird to me, but I understand. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'd probably watch it. It'd probably
People
feel
needed to
weird.
wrap their heads around it. It's so hard. It's like you got to watch
Well,
the movie Back to the Future 5 times to wrap your head around the concept of Back to the Future. Now let's start with real life 20 and back programs, multiple, and secret space programs thrown in. That's like a whole nother level
it's
for
just
people to even wrap their hands around.
and with the Montauk Project, with Project Phoenix, okay, she made a movie about that. Man, the stuff that did and the things that happened, like those the stories of like the Spaniards coming over and just killing everyone.
Conquistadors.
Yeah, Montauk was a part of that. There were portals. There were super soldiers involved. Every man, woman, and child, babies even, had to kill them all. That was the MO. Come back to base covered in blood. Like, it's just so dark. I don't even know how they could make a movie about it, but they can try.
You could. I mean, you definitely can, and that I think would be a big step. So if you're a writer, write. If you're a musician, sing and perform. If you're a movie maker, do that. If you're on the inside, leak all the data as you can in the most coherent way you can to as many people as you can. If you're an outsider and you don't want to be more than a fanboy or fangirl, donate to the cause, subscribe to these folks, get on their Patreon, and send them super chats and whatnot. All of this will coalesce into a movement, and that's for starters. And then off of that, there'll be people who then get more involved politically, and there are going to be people who are taking their conferences and then linking up with the Paris Hiltons and the Britney Spearses of the world who have higher profiles. And from that, we'll have a much more coherent movement, and we'll be at a different stage.
Britney is not free, though. I want to point that out. She's not free.
She's not free. She ain't free. She's not free. No.
The people that think that she is, she's not. Those videos that she's CGI backgrounds. It's arguably an AI. It might not even actually be her, and it's been caught. You can look it up on TikTok. It's the perfect place to look it up. She's
also doing TikToks of her dissociating into like her 7-year-old persona. Drawing lipstick all over her face and babbling. Like that looks like an MK Ultra dissociated victim.
Yeah, it's sad for me, man, because like I remember she would read stories to me or like make up stories about like kings and queens and castles, and kind of like I was this 8-year-old boy, she's a 15-year-old girl, and she kind of would babysit me. These guys would go out, they'd leave the studio and go drink at the bar or whatever. They'd leave for a while and they'd just leave me with her.
Are these like Khazarian mafia like execs?
It's Swedish. It's the Ordo Templum Nephilim, and that's just one of many of these satanic organizations. Some of them are actually vying against each other. Some of them might not be the same organization.
Like they have factions and infighting for power. Yeah.
Ordo Templum Nephilim is just one of them. But it's a Swedish royalty. The Swedish, because this is Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden, all of that.
Right, and they've been implicated. They've been implicated by David Robert Steele, God bless his soul, who was assassinated in the hospital 2 years back, I think it was, at the World Tribunal thing for justice, and they've been implicated in human hunting parties.
Yeah, that's real. I've been the huntee. That's real.
As a clone.
And
they hunt you down, they kill you, and then you wake up somewhere, memory wiped, none the better for it.
Well, yeah, or I would just wake up I just kept on waking up at this clone center.
In the center, okay.
And like, yeah, and they take me It was all white, everything really white, everything really sterile, hospital like. And that guy would pick me up. Like I said, he'd bring me to either the studio, or sometimes it'd be these parties, or sometimes they'd bring me to the studio and the party would be after. But normally they would make a song and they would ritualistically kill me, just rape me and kill me during the song. And Chiron, okay, this is the ancient god that wanted death, longed for death, but could not have it because they were immortal. That's what they named their studio after. Like, I'm telling the truth, people. These people are
Yeah.
sick.
It's
Like,
satanic symbolism. Dark.
yeah, like they literally are putting it right in the open what they're doing there. Like, I couldn't die. Like, none of us could. Britney couldn't. All those boy band guys couldn't. Like, it's fucked up, dude. Like,
And look at, and now that they've really taken over the rap scene, and they call it, they've called it in their business, getting the gravy or whatever, making the gravy, and
yeah,
that has all.
there used to be high vibration rap music, and when it first started, it was like a cultural phenomenon where it was about like struggles in the hood and stuff like that, and they talked about some pretty hardcore shit, but that got hijacked by
Right.
these Satanists. And some of these rappers like Biggie and stuff like that, they were Satanists. I love Tupac, but I kind of think he was one. I think he was a
Well,
super,
he was used for sure, and
yeah,
that
he was
was
a super soldier. I believe that I interacted with him in the programs because I have this weird kind of like an emotional connection with his music. Maybe I worked on some of it. I don't know what it is, but I have a connection to him somehow. And it's sad because I can tell that even if he did join their bullshit, there's a goodness inside of him that they probably stole from him or something. I don't
it's
know.
hard. I mean,
There was a pureness in him. There was.
anyone in these programs, I mean, I'm sure there are some people who get taken in and then maybe Stockholm syndrome and willingly join and become gung ho for it. But honestly, anyone who gets taken into these programs, I consider a victim first and foremost.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Survivor if you made it, but that's a victim thing because you got attacked by an abuser who, when you look at Tupac stuff and you go back and you look at a lot of his photos where, he was doing like it's almost like they're putting a black man in a dress sort of thing. They did that to Tupac.
Yeah, what is up with that?
So
That's a whole thing.
that's satanic inversion. And so what they did is first you take apart the black community with gangster rap, and it's all about macho males who don't take care of the children and bang the hoes and kill all the other slighting term from the establishment side to basically mislabel the hijack term of alpha males. Because if you can say by definition strong men who protect their women and their children and provide and build society, if they are by definition toxic or bad, then you've redefined it. And from there, once you get rid of strong males, what do you have left? Call them beta males, call them non-alpha males, weak males. Well,
It's one of those things where I don't want to get it caught up in nomenclature, and
sure.
I hate it when people do that. But I just don't like the term alpha male because, like, there's a study that they did with wolves in captivity, and they tried to make it seem like an alpha male is a certain thing that it's not. So I guess, and I'm not going to get caught up in nomenclature because I agree with you, but like, yeah, I just want to say like, we're not identifying with the idea that it's one man and they have to compete with it's
No, I'm not
it's
saying
the
at all.
nurturing thing, and it's just been misunderstood, and that's what you're saying. It's not masculinity is not toxic.
No,
Period. It's not that.
I'm saying this. I'm saying this the way the KGB broke it down in their own guidebooks for how to take down the United States and Western society. And they themselves use the terms, as far as I understand, alpha male, in terms of a males who will stand up and defend their families.
Politicians are all on board with it. It's like, um, I just kind of had someone comment. I maybe should interview them because I don't really know where they are, but they comment on one of my posts and they're just talking about they live in Washington, they have their family kind of has connections to it and stuff. I'm like, look, man, the Republicans and the Democrats and stuff, a lot of them are part of the same cabal club. They go for drinks together. They act like they're enemies, but they're really friends.
Right.
And it's all this big show they put on for everybody, where it's like it's not real. But they understand what's going on. They understand that there's these buzz issues like transgenderism and certain things like Christianity and there's just certain stuff where if they can use it to irritate people and use it to invert it, that's another thing too. Like Christianity isn't necessarily a bad religion or a bad thing, but what they've done is they've inverted and perverted the church and made it fucked up. Just like, the feminine and masculine are both sacred, and even men have feminine energy and women have, masculine energy, but
Mhm.
they've bastardized that as well and fucked with that and made it in a way where it's nefarious, done nefarious things with it. And so yes, it's really important to not have like these issues are really complicated, but like also like it's important to talk about because it's real. What they're doing is real. There are agendas being played out that are real, and I feel like it's good that I brought you on the show because I feel like I was really able to super duper clarify my point on that, because it's not I just don't think that we should hate people. And like I said, with Masons, with the people who are cringe, like they're not actually Satanists, but like they go to metal concerts and they put up the horns and stuff. But like you need to understand that these people, like, they're not part of the darkness. They don't realize what's going on. They're not part of it. But at
It's
the same time, we need to address the fact that maybe appropriating these things is dangerous. Like,
but
and
that's the thing. We have to clarify the terminology because the other side all the time is exactly appropriating the terminology. But and what it really comes down to is once we've properly defined things for who and what they are, why they're there, the agendas and people behind them, then we're able to clarify, you know, and speak with political sophistication so that we don't have to get tied up in squabbling over, support or be anti or pro transgender or not. Is you understand that transgenderism or no transgenderism, the other side is going to use transgenderism to push their own pedophile agenda.
yeah,
Okay. And if
it's
you're
like the same way
politically,
that the church to do the same thing. The church
correct.
is all about Jesus, and Jesus is definitely the opposite of that energy and the opposite of that darkness. But the church has been used as an instrument for pedophilia. Period. And
What,
does
what
that
I
mean
want
that
to,
if you're Christian that you are a pedophile? No, but it's been used as an instrument, as
but,
a
but let me,
Trojan horse.
I want to speak to that as well as as a baby Christian. When we talk about the church, there's churches and then there's churches, and I'll call it out. The Roman Catholic Church under the Vatican, that's in the Bible is a whore of Babylon. That's like the wolf in sheep's clothing. People, you don't build Christian churches on top of people's dead bodies and
In order to be a satanic priest, and there's this guy, oh god, I can't remember his name. He's the insider that came out and said it.
Was his father Vigano?
I can't remember what, it's not him, but um, what he said is in order to be a satanic priest, and I believe this is true, you have to be a Christian priest or a Catholic, and you have
Catholic,
to invert and subvert the word of God is the way they look
right?
at it,
Yeah.
and compromise the church. So yeah, they these people know they're masters of manipulating things. They're masters of taking things that on the outside, how could that be bad? His message is great, right? How could that be bad? How could you pervert that? But they have. They're
Oh yeah.
masters.
You can pervert anything. They can pervert anything. But their weakness is after they've perverted so much, we don't know which way is up. As the truth comes out, bless you, and people get an orientation of what's good from evil and evil from good, and we can tell the difference. Then, as things get clear, they become more exposed because there's dirty little networks behind the scenes that they thought made them so powerful also compromise them. Because now one person squeaks. That's why they're so harsh on all their own whistleblowers. Okay, they can all go down. And so their position is only getting more and more tenuous as we go. They're only getting more desperate, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, that's true. And it's reaching a precipice. It's reaching a point where we are seeing things happening, and we have to be hopeful, like I said. And I appreciate you coming aboard the show and kind of bringing forth, I don't know, just like it's important to have these kind of like tough conversations about like certain subjects that necessarily aren't easy to talk about. that, I mean, SSP is hard enough to talk about, right? Like secret space programs, but also like talking about the transgender issues, talking about the issues with the churches, talking about things that it's touchy, because there's a lot of people in the disclosure movement who are Christian. There's a lot of people there are people in the disclosure movement who, believe it or not, who are transgender or have thoughts and ideas about that. Believe me, I get messages from these people.
I mean, let's speak to that. There are a lot of people in this movement who, if you've been cloned and you've been put into clones of the opposite sex, is it really any surprise that people are going to suffer from gender dysphoria?
Yeah,
No,
it's
not at all. Right. And then the other thing you were talking about was with the I'll say this as again, like as a baby Christian, I myself have realized that in reading the Bible itself has been bastardized and sections left out, and
yeah,
they left reincarnation out of the Bible. People, when people were encountering Yahushua, okay, for the first time, they often asked him, "Are you Elijah? Come again. Are you so and so? Come again." Okay, they were basically saying, "Are you the reincarnation of so and so?" This was a very widely accepted
concept
understanding.
exists. Obviously, the concept exists. Even if they tried to write it out of the Bible, there's still little breadcrumbs left of it.
Right. And so to me, I always say it's hard to put a name or a label to quote unquote Christianity, because even people who consider themselves to be Christians can be on very different pages.
Yeah, well,
So
I'm not a Christian myself, but I believe that Jesus was real and that he was an ascended master.
yeah,
And all the things he said were powerful and true. I just don't call myself a Christian. That's just maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
sure,
and I
sure.
also believe that we have our own power.
Mm-hmm.
We are
And
not.
he told us that too.
Yeah,
He said,
exactly.
"You're going to work more miracles than I will, times 1,000." Old men are going to dream dreams, and young people will see visions and perform miracles. So we're not saying anything he didn't say.
Exactly. And that's, I think, the part of the inversion, the part of the perversion of the message, making it something that it's not, which is so common. And people need to realize that even, we need to look at the true enemies, and the true enemies are these secret society organizations. They do exist. They're not, there's, what was it, the Italian one?
Committee of 300, Knights of Malta,
There's the one where it was Deuce.
Knights of Columbus.
Man, I can need to like always have a notebook next to me full of this information, but there's so much of it. How would I even organize it? We're gonna be doing a actual cat knows a lot of information. It has books on it and everything, and it's this Italian Freemason sect that took over their government and made a deep state, literally.
Oh, that might be the P3 Freemasons. Is that the P3 Freemasons?
Yes, yep, yeah. And so the idea that this stuff doesn't happen, that's not real, that's false, man. It's already they got busted and got kicked out of a country. They got kicked out of Italy. So, and also that can happen again here, hopefully, right? So, that's
it's happening. It is happening. In my opinion, the fact that we're able to, on Suckbook, for example, I myself on my own feed have been putting out the information I'm getting off Telegram and less censored platforms about excess mortality and myocarditis and pericarditis and all that. And at least on the Suckbook platform, I'm not nearly as censored, and I'm not getting the little fact check labels that I was getting a year ago that led to my Facebook original account being shut down.
I think what they realize is like Facebook is shrinking, so they can't be all high and mighty and pick and choose who they allow to use the app now if they want to survive.
I think that I like to think there's someone behind the scenes that might be starting to say, okay, we're recognizing your censorship as a war crime, and you guys are going to be held liable. And just so you know, we're going to come around to you. And so with that in mind, you all might want to step back to censorship. That's the intuitive sense that I get, but that's just me.
Yeah, we'll see. There's definitely got to be people behind the scenes doing certain things. But I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Arkim.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get this movement off the ground. I do believe that you are an important part of the movement. I kind of thought that is a little introduction for you maybe to people because you're friends with a lot of us now and we all kind of know who you are. So I feel like you kind of deserved a video where you could kind of talk like everybody else. So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, but yeah, we'll talk again soon. We'll keep in touch and just this is Disclosure now. We are the Disclosure. Thank you for watching, everybody, and have a good day.
And to end with a revolutionary call, hey, if you're a filmmaker, a writer, a producer, an artist, a whistleblower, my email is brian_sang@yahoo.com. And, please answer the call with Arkeem and I and so many others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much love.
Thank you.